everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. I am so excited to show you guys this week's project, and it is the Suzy Shoulder Bag. And I must apologize, I have a sewing project also on the go here, so I just have it on my little mannequin here just to kind of see how it sits, and I love it. This is a fantastic spring and summer. It's kind of like a boho-y feel. And it's got this really cool asymmetrical shape. I just love it. So let me just take it over to the table here. I'm gonna lay it flat and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the details of this bag and just how easy it is. If you are new here, my name is Karen and I love sharing my joy and love of crochet and my knowledge with you guys. So this week we are working on the Suzy Shoulder Bag. Look at how cute that looks. So it's done using this kind of asymmetrical panel that we create so that it leads right up to joining to your strap. It's a single strap. And you can make this strap longer, by the way, if you want it to be a crossbody bag. I actually didn't want it to be a crossbody, so this is why mine is just a comfortable shoulder bag length. Now, I know this looks super fancy and intricate, but really it's created using one panel. And those of you that followed along in my Shall We Crochet series from last year, 2022, you may recall that I created a shawl in September called the Fall Fair Wrap. And actually, that is the exact same pattern I used to create this bag. So it has this kind of parallelogram type of look. And so I just used the idea of that panel design I created and I folded it to create a bag design. And then we created a strap for it. Now, what is a little wee different is that I am using the Linked Double Crochet stitch for this project. So you can see it just creates a nice denser fabric. And it's really nice and sturdy for things like bags, actually. So it works out really, really well. If you are new, do not fret. Don't be intimidated by this. As long as you know your double crochet stitch and some chain stitches and slip stitches, you are good to go. So, you know, it is a bag that's designed using completely basic stitches. It's just that the linked double crochet, there's just a funky little technique that we use, and I'm going to take you through that. You just want to take your time nice and easy and you will get it no problem. And the other thing is this is going to make for a fun late spring, summer boho type bag. I just love it. Now, this currently doesn't have a lining in it. And actually, I'm going to use this like silk pillow insert. This was given to me many years ago, and it's kind of seen its day, but I thought this would be perfect to put a lining in the bag. Now, for those of you, if you don't sew, like if you don't know how to use a sewing machine, don't worry about that. You can absolutely hand sew a lining into your bag. Many of you have seen me hand sew a zipper onto some of my crochet projects. And that went over really well. And I'll leave that link to that in the description box down below if you ever want to add zippers to your crochet project. Now, the opening of this does not lend itself to a zipper per se. So this is just kind of a nice open-ended bag, but I am going to put a lining in it. And if you're interested in checking that out, I will make a separate tutorial to show you just how easy it is. You can do it by hand, no problem. Now, I used a 100% cotton-based yarn for this. I really like using fortified fibers for things like bags. So my go-to is generally 100% cotton. Of course, you can use cotton blends as well. I use the Bernat Handicrafter cotton yarn, and I got it in the big skeins they come in. You won't use a full skein for this bag. Of course, it will depend on how large you make your bag. But that's pretty much it. Doesn't it look really cool? And I just love the kind of asymmetrical feel of it. I like how the eyelet design just worked in really well. Again, just using double crochets and chain stitches. You guys, I think you're going to giggle to yourself once you see how easy it is to create the actual panel. And then it'll just be sewing up the seams, and then we're going to create our strap. Now, in order to create the asymmetrical look, so if I turn it this way, we are working kind of widthwise. So it's basically just understanding that one side always has a decrease and one side always has an increase. And this is what creates that kind of slanted look. I'm going to take you through that whole process in this tutorial, so stay tuned. Now, let's just get you organized with all the materials you want to collect together, and then we're going to start stitching up our Suzy shoulder bag. Okay, so let's talk about the yarn we're going to use. So I am using a Bernat Handicrafter cotton. This is awesome for things like bags. Because it's 100% cotton, it's got the strength, it's got the durability, and it's great against moisture just in case you happen to get it wet. So this skein is 340 grams, and it contains 573 yards or 524 meters. And one skein should be good to go for our bag. And so the hook I'm going to be using for this project is a 6mm hook, which is also known as a J or a size 10. Also make sure that you have a yarn needle on hand to sew in your ends and a handy pair of scissors to snip off your yarn. And now I recommend as well to just keep maybe a couple of stitch markers. I just have some safety pins here. Use whatever you find you prefer. This is going to come in handy to help keep a consistent stitch count for your project. So let's get started. So we're going to begin by placing a slip knot on our hook. And you're going to chain up 51 chains. Once you have 51 chains, you actually want to chain one more. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to find the second chain from the hook. Remember that you never count the loop that is on the hook. So we count 1 and 2. And into that stitch, we are going to place a single crochet. Just like that. Okay, now for this project, we are going to be using the linked double crochet stitch. But every time you begin a row, this is the method I like to use. So I start with that single crochet. See how there's 2 legs there? I like to then go in behind that left leg and pull up a loop and resolve like another single crochet. So what that does is it stacks these 2 one on top of the other, and it gives you a little bit more of a substantial double crochet height as well as girth, okay? And so that's how I like to start all of my rows for the linked double crochet stitch. So now we're going to actually do the linked double crochet. So what you want to do is you want to go into that leg again. You're going to insert your hook. So notice I did not yarn over. I'm going to then pull up a loop. So you have 2 loops. And now I will go into the next chain right here, and I will pull up a loop. So I have 3 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 only, just like a regular double crochet. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the next 2. And that is a linked double crochet stitch. Okay, now it might not look like anything just yet, but just hang in there. So we're going to do that again. So now your linked double crochet, you've created this little bar here. So that is what we're going to insert our hook into. You're going to insert into that bar first to pull up your loop at the beginning. Then you go into the next stitch, or in this case, the chain, and you pull up another loop. And then you resolve like a double crochet. Pull through 2 and pull through 2. And there you have another linked double crochet stitch. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to get my stitch marker, and that first double crochet we created, that stacked stitch, I'm going to put a stitch marker there. It's really easy for that stitch to get lost, and it will throw off your count. So right away, just want to make sure. So I've got 1, 2, and 3 stitches complete. So I'm going to keep doing this all the way to the end of my row. So I always go in through the bar first. So see how I'm coming from the top through to the bottom. I'm going to pull up a loop, And now I'm going to go into the very next stitch and pull up the next loop. Pull through 2 and pull through 2. So see how the stitches are staying linked to each other. That's why it's called the linked double crochet stitch. So you're going to continue doing that one into every single chain all the way to the end. And at the end of row number 1, you want to have 51 stitches. So go ahead and finish your row, and I'll meet up with you very shortly. Okay, so I've completed row number 1, and you can see that your work is looking something like this. And you can see how dense those linked double crochet stitches become, which is great for a bag project. Okay, so we're going to move on to row number 2, and from now on, every row will always have a side that increases and a side that decreases. That's what creates that kind of parallelogram kind of effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn our work, and we're going to go back into the same stitch, and we're going to single crochet. So again, I will then go back into that leg and place another single crochet. So this will count as a double crochet in the very first stitch. So we're going to go back into that same stitch and place another one. So we are going to begin row number 2 with an increase. So this is the increase side. So now I'm just going to go back to using my linked double crochet stitches. So I'm going to go back into the same stitch, just like that. So I've got 2 stitches, and at this point, I'm going to get my stitch marker and I am going to mark that first stitch so I don't lose it. So I've got 2 stitches, there's an increase there. And now the rest of the row is the exact same thing that you did in row 1. You're just going to continue placing 1 linked double crochet stitch into every stitch to the end of the row, except what you want to do is when you have 2 stitches left, meet me back here and I will take you through doing a decrease. So we have an increase on this side. See how it's already starting to shape this way? Increase on this side. On the other side, we're going to do a decrease. So continue with 1 into each stitch until you have 2 stitches left. Okay, so I have 2 stitches left. So let's see, there's where my stitch marker is. So row number 2, looking like that. I love how that variegated color is coming through. Okay, so I'm just going to take my stitch marker out here. And so now we're going to decrease these 2 stitches together to become 1. So it's also called a 2 together stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook into the bar like I usually have done. I'm going to pull up a loop. Now I'm going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to pull up a loop as well. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 like I normally would do, but I'm not going to resolve this stitch. I'm going to leave these 2 loops on the hook. So I'm now going to go into the left leg here. Because I haven't resolved the stitch, my bar is here, but if I go back in there, it's going to kind of negate what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to go into the left leg here to pull up a loop, and then go into that chain there that was at the very end. So then I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull through the first 2. So technically I have 2 linked double crochet stitches that are unresolved on my hook, plus my original loop. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of them. And that brings those 2 stitches into 1. So that is my first decrease. And then I just want to grab my stitch marker and replace it right away. So because I increased at the beginning and then decreased at the end, I should still have 51 stitches. So if you're unsure, make sure you go back and count. But then once you get the hang of the system of what we're doing, that's why these stitch markers come in handy. So right now we've just decreased, so it's going to create the need for your work to start slanting in. Whereas on this side we had an increase, you see, the The slant is going out. Now we're going to move on to row number 3. And so anytime you turn your work, whatever you ended with is what you're going to begin with. So in row 2, I ended with a decrease. So that means in row number 3, I'm going to begin with a decrease. So I'm going to mimic what the last thing was that I just did. So I'm going to chain 1, then turn my work. And because I'm going to start with a decrease, actually I'll take that out again. We don't need to worry about creating that double crochet here. We're actually going to skip this stitch altogether. And we are just going to do a regular double crochet into that stitch. Okay. And so because we skipped this stitch and we only did a chain 1, see how it's creating the need to lean, which is exactly what we want for our decrease at the beginning. So the decrease at the end obviously was different because we were at the end of a row. Here we're at the beginning of a row. So you just simply chain 1, skip the first stitch, and then work a regular double crochet into the next stitch. And now you know what we're going to do. We're going to continue placing 1 linked double crochet stitch into every single stitch, just like we did before. So you're going to do that all the way to the end of your row. When you get to the last stitch, which is right here, you will be on top of your increase. So into the last stitch of the increase, we're going to place an increase. That means we're going to place 2 stitches into that stitch. Okay, but go ahead and finish row number 3, and I will meet up with you there just to kind of take you through how I go about doing that, especially if you are a little bit newer. Okay, I'm finishing row number 3, and I've come up to the very last stitch, so I'm just going to take out my stitch marker. And so I had done an increase here, so we're going to do an increase here as well. So we start like a regular linked double crochet. We go into that last stitch. And we finish our linked double crochet stitch. And then we go into that bar again. And we just go back into the same space that we went into last time. And that is our increase. Okay, so again, I know I have 51 stitches at the end of row number 3. Now, don't worry, sometimes the ends of your rows, because of how we started our double crochet stitch, will have a little bit of a bump there, but that's all going to get sewn in once we put our bag together. So here we have a decreased side, so it leans that way, and here we have an increased side, which goes that way. So we're going to go into row number 4, and we're going to do exactly what we just did. So we finished with an increase, so we're going to begin with an increase. So we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and then we're going to single crochet into the very first stitch. So this is where we're doing that stacked double crochet, or stacked single crochet, I should say. So you would go into that left leg there, and basically single crochet again. So that's why you've got these little bumps here, which will be just fine, and it's very normal, so don't panic. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the same stitch. We're going to do that by going into the left leg there, and then going into the first stitch and resolving like a regular double crochet. So right away, this is where I grab my stitch marker. See how that stitch is already getting kind of snuggled down there? I just want to put a stitch marker there so I remember that there is a stitch there. Okay, so there's 2 stitches in one. And as always, I just continue as I normally do, 1 linked double crochet stitch into every stitch. So it's pretty straightforward. With regards to the stitch, you're going to get really good at this linked double crochet stitch. Okay, so we've got an increase here, and you know the drill. Once you get to the end, this is the decrease side. So you want to leave 2 stitches remaining. So we've got this stitch and this stitch, and then we're going to stitch these 2 stitches together, okay, for your decrease. Once we finish row number 4, I'm going to take you through one more row, which is row number 5, which I call the eyelet row, and you'll see why when we get there. And then our full repeat will be done. So we'll have 5 rows, and then we'll continue to repeat those rows for the length of our panel. So I'm going to go ahead and finish row number 4, and then I will take you through row number 5. Okay, so I have completed row number 4, and it is starting to take shape now. So I finished with the decrease, so you can see it's starting to slant, and here we have the increase. So row number 5, we're going to change things up a little bit, but we still want to make sure that we are repeating the technique of what we just did. So I just did a decrease, so I'm going to begin the next row with a decrease. So I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to do what I did previously. I'm going to skip this first stitch, and into that next stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet. Okay, so see, creates that need to lean. And so this is the eyelet row. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these little eyelets. So we've just done a double crochet. So now we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, we're going to place a double crochet. And there's an eyelet right there. Okay, so we've got, and actually I should replace this stitch marker just to remind myself. So that chain 1 doesn't count as anything. Our very first stitch is going to be that one there. Okay, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next stitch we do a double crochet. So we're just doing regular double crochet stitches along here. See, then we chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next one, double crochet. So I think you get the gist here. And this is what we're going to repeat all the way to the end of our row. Okay, so I will meet up with you once we're ready to place a stitch in the very last stitch there. Okay, so row number 5, just about done. Look at how pretty that looks. Okay, so I've just done my last double crochet, and I've got 1 stitch left. You might think, well, how the heck am I supposed to do an eyelet here? Remember that we're going to be doing an increase on this side because we did a decrease on this side. So with 1 stitch left, we're still going to do the usual. We're going to chain 1 because that's going to count as a stitch. And then we're going to go back into that last stitch and place our double crochet. So technically we have 2 stitches in the end because we have our double crochet and the chain 1. Okay, so you have something that looks like that. And anytime you're doing an eyelet row, if you are doing an increase, that is how you're going to be doing it at the end. Okay, and our full repeat is now complete. So rows 1 through 4 are just straight linked double crochet stitches. Just be cognizant of where to decrease and where to increase. And then row number 5 is the eyelet row. Okay, so I'm just going to get you started on row number 6, which is now the repeat. So we're going to go back down to repeating row number 1. So because we ended with an increase, we're going to begin with an increase. So here we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and right back into that same stitch, we're going to single crochet. You know the drill, I think, and then go back into that leg. This is what gives us our height for our first double crochet. And now right back into the same stitch, this is where we're going to do our next linked double crochet stitch. There we go. See the increase? Again, you're going to see that bump out there, but don't fret. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure that I place my stitch marker there. Okay, so there's 2 stitches in 1. So now you have a chain 1 space. So I'm going to do a linked double crochet. And just to make things easier, I'm going to go into the space there. Okay, so at the beginning I did 2 stitches into one, and then I did a linked double crochet into the chain 1 space. Now for the rest of the spaces, instead of going into the stitch and into the chain, I'm going to place 2 stitches in that space. So it's still going to be a linked double crochet. I still want to go in through that bar. I'm going to go into the space now and finish the stitch. See that? And I'm going to do a second one. So I'm going to go in through the bar first and then back into that space. And there we have it, just like that. Okay, and that is what you're going to do all the way to the end of your row. And remember that when you get to the end, this is going to be a decrease at the end this time. So just make sure that you act accordingly once you have 2 stitches left. Okay, so go to the end when you have 2 stitches left. So that's going to be your chain 1 and your stitch. You want to double crochet those 2 together, okay? And I will meet up with you at the end here just because it's the end of the eyelet row and I just want to make sure it's nice and clear for you. So go ahead and finish row number 5. Okay, so row number 6 is complete. And I've actually got 3 stitches left here. So I've got the regular stitch, I've got the chain 1, and I've got that stitch right there. So to decrease, what we're going to do is we are going to place 1 regular, as usual, into the space. And then we are going to begin a second one into the space. And then we're going to do a third one, but we're actually going to go into that little chain there. Okay, and we're going to begin third one. So we've got 2 stitches unresolved, and you're going to pull through all 3, and there's your decrease. Now, some people might have said, well, since you're there, why bother even going into that? You could just skip it and consider that your decrease. You totally can do that. I just want to stay consistent with how I'm creating my decrease shape. So that is why I follow the typical decrease method at the end. So there you have it. Row number 6 is now the beginning repeat of row number 1. So now you would continue to do 3 more rows of just the linked double crochet stitch. And then for the 5th row, so you have 4 rows in total. For the 5th row, you're going to do that eyelet row. So remember, as always, the part that never changes is whatever you finish with, you begin with. So we finished with the decrease. So we would chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to begin with a decrease. When we finish with an increase, we are going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to make sure that we begin with an increase. So right here, see how this could easily have gotten lost. So right there, we're going to have our increase into the very first stitch. So at all costs, if you're ever unsure, simply count your stitches. We know that we always want to have 51 stitches in each and every single row. So this is your repeat, guys. And what you're going to do is you're going to repeat rows 1 through 5 for a total of 10 times, okay? But at the end of the 10th time, I want you not to do the 5th row. So repeat this section 10 times, and on your 10th repeat, we're just going to stop at the 4th row. We're not going to repeat the 5th row, okay? So I'm going to set you loose now for a little while, and I'm going to get you to create your full length, and then meet me back here, and then we'll start talking about how to get our bag to start taking shape. Okay, so I have finished my desired length. Now I actually stopped at 9 repeats. So you'll notice here on this end, Whoops, this is the beginning. On this end here, I did not repeat the mesh stitch row, and I did that on purpose because I wanted both of these ends to be pretty solid. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. So what we're going to do before we put our bag together, so essentially what's going to happen is we're going to fold this in half. And you see how these 2 points kind of sit out? That's what's going to create kind of the base of our handle. So what I want to do though, before we do that, is I want to do a really nice basic finishing round all the way around all of the sides of this panel. And then that'll give us something nice and substantial to work with when we are sewing up our sides. So I'm just going to take you through that right now. Okay, so right where I ended off, I am now going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and I'm not going to turn my work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my work so that now I'm going to work down along the side of my rows, okay? And so what we're going to do now is we're going to work some half double crochet stitches. So it's going to be kind of a little bit tricky because, like I said, we're working to the sides of rows. So we have worked linked double crochet stitches. The general rule is that you can usually fit 2 stitches into the side of a double crochet. I am just going to eyeball what I see fit. So what you want to make sure is that your row here or your round is not buckling or puckering. That's basically all you're looking for. So this chain 2 is going to count as the height of a half double crochet stitch. And now I'm going to find a nice spot. Maybe I'm going to go right in there, and I'm going to place a half double, oops, I'm going to place a half double crochet in there. Okay, and I'm just going to pull through all 3. Okay, so you're going to have a little bit of a gap there, but don't worry, that'll all work itself out once we come back around. So basically, the half double crochet stitch is the only thing you're going to worry about right now. And now we just have to find where else would I like it. So my last stitch just went in here. So let's try going in here. Just like that. Okay. And sitting pretty good. Okay, and now, so some of these are chain 3s, some of these are the first stitches. So you just want to make sure you always pick up at least 2 loops. So I'm going to go right into this space here next. Okay, and yep, still looking pretty good to me. So that's what I'm going to keep doing all the way down my side. There we go. So again, it's not puckering and it's not buckling, so I'm very happy with that. Okay, so now I'm going to continue doing that all the way down the side here. And when you get to the corner, what you want to do is you want to place 3 stitches into that last stitch. So at this point, this is where our foundation chain row is. So once you hit right about here, there we go. So that's going to be right at the corner, okay? Once you hit here, you're going to place 3 half double crochets into that corner. And what that does is it helps you come around that corner in a nice smooth transition. And then you're going to work a half double crochet along the bottom, which now is going to be super easy because you will have actual stitches to work into, okay? Then when you get to the end here, see that's where we first started. Again, you're going to place 3 half double crochet stitches into that stitch. That's going to help you come around the corner, and it'll still maintain the integrity of the parallelogram effect, by the way. So see how, you've got a short side and a long side? It shouldn't affect that in any way. So once you come around your corner, then you're going to do the other side half double crochet all the way up. And then once you get to the top, we do want to finish with a round of half double crochet stitches. And so that way, both ends, when we fold them in, are going to have the same number of rows. So this might take you a little while because you're going to go all the way around. So I'm going to leave you to do that. You're going to press pause. You're going to do that. And then you're going to meet me back here and we're going to talk about how we're going to now sew up our sides and how we're going to then crochet our handles. So I will see you back here in a little bit.